Hello, and welcome to the Permission to Breathe podcast, a transformative space dedicated to providing a sanctuary where you can inhale deeply and exhale freely, embracing your grief journey unapologetically. I am your host, Dr. Tammy Isaac, here with you every Monday to offer comfort, guidance, and hope. Together we'll navigate this path, finding moments to pause, reflect, and breathe. Let's begin this journey side by side. Today's episode of Permission to Breathe is sponsored by Aurora's Grief Journey, my new children's book about navigating loss and finding comfort. Aurora's Grief Journey follows a young girl who's learning to cope with the loss of her grandfather. Through heartfelt storytelling and faithful activities, the book helps children understand their feelings and provides families with practical ways to heal together. If you're looking for a gentle resource to support a child through grief, this book is the perfect place to start. You can grab your copy today on Amazon. Thank you for tuning in. Now let's continue this journey of healing together. Welcome to the Permission to Breathe podcast, where we create space for healing, hope, and heart. I'm your host, Dr. Tammy Isaac, and I'm honored to walk with you on your journey today. We're talking about Valentine's Day. For some, it's a time of celebration and joy, filled with flowers, chocolates, and romantic dinners. But for others, perhaps for you, this day carries a much different meaning. It may be a painful reminder of loss, loneliness, or the deep ache of love that has been broken or even taken away. Maybe you've lost someone you cherished, or maybe you're healing from a breakup or a divorce, or perhaps you've never experienced the kind of love this holiday glorifies, and you feel like the weight of that absence is even more today, right? Whatever your story may be, I want you to know that you are not alone in your feelings. And in this episode, it is dedicated to those whose hearts feel heavy every year around Valentine's Day. And together we'll explore how grief, heartbreak, and loneliness can show up in our lives, especially during this season that we affectionately call love. More importantly, we'll talk about how to honor our emotions, lean into self-compassion, and embrace the different kinds of love that surrounds us, even in times of loss. So let's take a deep breath. And remember, you have permission to feel exactly what you need to feel today. Let's dive in. Valentine's Day has come and gone. The stores have cleared out the red and pink displays. The heart-shaped chocolates are on clearance. And social media has moved on from the flood of romantic posts. But for those who experience grief and loneliness or the sting of love lost, the feelings don't disappear just because the day is over. For many, Valentine's Day wasn't a celebration. It was a painful reminder. Maybe you spent the day missing someone who is no longer here. Maybe you were grieving a love that ended, a marriage, a relationship, or even the hope of one that never began. Maybe you felt unseen, watching others receive love while you sat in silence, wondering if anyone even noticed your pain. And perhaps you told yourself, this shouldn't hurt so much. It's just one day. But the truth is, when grief meets a day that is meant to celebrate love, it definitely can stir emotions that you weren't expecting. A memory, a song, a simple sight of a couple holding hands, any of these can open a wound you thought had started to heal. Grief and love are deeply connected. We grieve because we have loved, and when the world around us is celebrating love while we are mourning loss, that contrast can feel unbearable. But I want to remind you, you are not alone in this, and your pain is not invisible. And just because your Valentine's Day doesn't look like others around you, that doesn't mean that your story of love has actually ended. Valentine's Day has a way of making love feel like an expectation rather than an actual experience. From the moment that February begins, we are completely surrounded by messages that tell us what love should be looking like. Romantic dinners, grand gestures, picture perfect relationships. There's these unspoken pressures that if you don't have someone to celebrate with, if your love story doesn't fit the mold, then somehow you're missing out. But what happens when love doesn't look the way the world says that it should look? What happens when love is lost and love has never arrived in the way that you had hoped? For so many, Valentine's Day wasn't a day of joy. It was a day of grief, and grief comes in many forms. Some of you may have spent the day missing a spouse or partner who is no longer here, whether their passing was recent or years ago. Special days like this have a way of reopening old wounds. You might have longed for their presence, for the way they used to make you feel loved, for the small traditions you once shared, and no matter how much time has passed, their absence was still deeply felt. For others, the grief came in the form of a relationship that ended through separation, divorce, or a painful breakup. Maybe this was your first Valentine's Day alone in a long time, and the silence felt completely unbearable. Or maybe you've had multiple Valentine's Days pass without the relationship, but the weight of what was lost still lingers. And then there's the grief that isn't tied to a specific person, but rather the absence of love itself. Maybe you've never had the kind of relationship that you longed for. Maybe you've watched others experience love while wondering when or if it will ever happen to you. It's the quiet grief of unmet dreams, of longing for a love that never came, and the ache of feeling like you're on the opposite side looking in. Loneliness has this way of amplifying itself on days like Valentine's Day. Seeing couples, hearing love songs, scrolling through social media, all of it, or can be reinforcements that reinforce the feeling that you're missing something essential. But I want to remind you, your worth is not determined by whether or not someone gives you flowers, writes you a letter, or posts about you online. Your heart still holds love even in the midst of its grief. So if this Valentine's Day left you feeling alone, unseen, or aching for what was lost, I want you to know that you're not forgotten. Love is not just about romance. Love is about connection. It's about belonging and the people who hold space for you, even when the world feels empty. And just because your love story looks different, it doesn't mean that it's not worthy. Grief, loneliness, and heartbreak aren't just emotions we feel in our minds. They are experiences that affect our whole being. If you found yourself struggling around Valentine's Day, maybe you noticed it in more ways than just one. Grief doesn't just stay in the heart, it finds ways into the body, the mind, and even the soul. Emotionally, it can show up as deep sadness, longing, or regret. You may have felt waves of sorrow wash over you unexpectedly. Maybe one moment you were fine and the next you were crying over an old memory, a song, or even just the sight of someone holding hands. Physically, grief and loneliness can take a toll on your body. Maybe you felt exhausted even though you slept all night. Maybe you lost your appetite or felt a heaviness in your chest that made it hard to breathe deeply. Heartbreak is not just a phase. It's real. it's a physical experience. And studies have shown that loss and loneliness activate the same pain centers in the body as physical injury. In other words, your grief isn't just in your head, it's in your body too. And then spiritually, grief can create distance between you and others, and even between you and God. Maybe you felt abandoned, questioning why love seemed to slip right through your fingers. Maybe you prayed for comfort but still felt empty. Or maybe you couldn't pray at all because the pain was just too heavy to even put into words. If you felt any of this, I want you to know you're not broken. You are grieving. And grief is not something to be rushed or even ignored. It is a normal process. It's normal to feel deep waves of sadness, to question your worth, or even to feel like you don't fit into the world that seems to be celebrating love at the time. All of these feelings are real, and it's okay to honor them. You don't have to push them away just because the world has moved on from Valentine's Day and moved into something else. One of the hardest parts of grief is how isolating it can feel, especially during holidays. When we don't talk about our pain, it becomes heavier. When we pretend we're fine, we push away the very people who might be able to hold space for us. Unacknowledged grief doesn't disappear. It lingers. It settles into our bodies, our thoughts, and our relationships, showing up in ways we may not even recognize. That's why giving yourself permission to feel is so very important. Because when we deny our pain, we also deny ourselves the opportunity to heal. One of the things that I always mention to people is that grieving or crying also are tools that God has given us to help heal the pain that we experience from our loss. Because God understood that when we lose things, that we would have such an attachment that it would be painful and sometimes detrimental to our body if we didn't have spaces and places to begin to release those things from our bodies so that we could heal through the process of those things that have hurt us. So today, I just want to encourage you, don't silence your grief. Let it be acknowledged. Whatever that means, writing it down, speaking it out loud, or sitting in quiet reflection. Just give yourself the space to feel what you need to feel or what needs to be felt. Because love it isn't just about romance. It's about how we care for ourselves in the midst of the sorrow. And that care begins with allowing ourselves to be totally honest about how we are actually feeling. And it's important that, when people ask us how we're feeling, how are you doing? Not just to be like, I'm okay, when the truth is you're not okay. You had a grief experience that literally changed the trajectory of your life. And you have people that want to support you. And instead of trying to bury what you feel and trying to show forth a face of strength and stability, it's better for us to lean on the people that want to support us, that are there for us, that want to make sure that we are healing through the very pain that we are experiencing at that time. Are you grieving and feel like you're struggling alone? You don't have to walk this path by yourself. Book a virtual session with Dr. Tammy Isaac at Breathe Grief Counseling Center. Visit us online at www.breathegriefcounselingcenter.com. Dr. Isaac will help you put your emotions into words. She'll help you reduce the feeling of isolation. She'll help you understand that everyone grieves differently, and also help you prevent unhealthy coping mechanisms. Take control of your life with world-class counseling sessions today with Dr. Tammy Isaac. We've talked about the weight of grief the loneliness that lingers and how heartbreak affects us emotionally, physically, and spiritually. But now I want to shift the focus a little bit, because while grief is real, so is love. And even in loss, even in loneliness, love still exists around us. So how do we navigate these emotions in a way that honors both our grief and the love that remains? One of the first things we can do is allow ourselves to grieve without shame. This is giving ourselves permission. Too often we tell ourselves that we should be over it by now, or that we're weak for feeling the way we do, but grief is not a weakness, it's an extension of love. And the depth of your sorrow is a reflection of the depth of your love. So let yourself begin to feel that love. Name your emotions, write them down, speak them aloud, pray them out. Whatever allows you to release what's inside of you, then do that. And another way to honor both grief and love is to create a ritual that acknowledges your loss while also inviting comfort. What do I mean? If you lost a spouse or a partner, maybe that looks like lighting a candle in their honor and spending time reflecting on the love you shared. If you're grieving a breakup or divorce, maybe it means writing a letter, not to send, but simply to release the emotions that are still weighing down on the inside of you. And if your grief is more about longing for a love that hasn't yet come, perhaps it means speaking words of affirmation of yourself, reminding yourself that your worth is not defined by another person's presence. It's also important to lean into the love that still surrounds you, even if it looks different than what you expected. So love isn't just found in romance. It's important to remember that. It's found in friendships, in community, in the people who show up for you in ways that are big and small. And maybe that means calling a friend and sharing an honest conversation about how you're actually feeling. Maybe it's spending time with a family member who makes you feel safe. Maybe it's even found in the kindness of strangers, a shared smile, a simple act of generosity, a moment of connection that reminds you love still exists within the world. And let's not forget the love that comes from within. Practicing self-compassion is one of the most powerful ways to move through grief. Instead of being hard on yourself for feeling lonely, speak to yourself as you would a dear friend. Remind yourself that you are lovable, that you are enough, that you are worthy of care. Do something nurturing for yourself. Cook a meal you enjoy. Take a long walk. Read a book that comforts you. Treat yourself as someone deserving of love, because you are. I'll share the Valentine Day, or actually Galentine's. I celebrate Galentine's. I'm not in a relationship where, I'm celebrating a romantic thing. So what I did was celebrated a Galentine's dinner with some of my female friends, and we dressed up really nicely, got really pretty, went to a very fancy restaurant. And what I did was handed out gift bags to everybody and made little self-care boxes and presented different things to them. And they met new people, built relationships with each other. And so for me, being single, being divorced, sometimes if I'm not in a relationship, Valentine's Day can be very overwhelming and grieving to me. And so having the Galentine's is one of the ways that I do things to value my worth and to enjoy myself and to treat myself in ways so that I'm not grieving the expectation that the world has put on me of what love should look like and what that day of celebration of love and relationships should look like. I believe that you have to determine what it is that is healthy for you and that is going to help you not fall deeper into this state of overwhelmness or grief because of one particular day. Lastly, for those who find comfort in their faith, turning to God's love can be a source of deep healing as well. The love of God is constant and it's unwavering and not dependent on our relationship status or the presence of another person. If your heart feels heavy, bring that weight to God in prayer. And if you feel lonely, remind yourself that you are never truly alone. Let the divine love that created you be a source of strength and renewal. Grief and love are not opposites, but they exist together. And even as we grieve, we can still make space for love to continue to grow in ways that we never expected. So as we move forward, I do want to encourage you to find one small way to honor your grief and another to welcome love, whether it's love for yourself, love for your community, or even present love, or even the ever-present love of God in your life. Even when love feels lost, it is never truly gone. It remains in memory, in connection, in the quiet presence of those who hold us in their hearts. And that, my friend, is something worth holding on to. I want to remind you that grief is not the end of your story. There is still love to be found. There is still meaning to be uncovered. And there is still hope, even if it feels distant right now. One of the most powerful things we can do after grief stirs something within us is to reframe the way we see love. Love is not just romantic. I've said that several times now. It's not just roses and candlelight dinners. Love is present in the way you show up for yourself every day. It's in the friendships that remind you you're not alone. It's in the family that checks in on you, the pets that greet you with joy, the community that surrounds you, even in the simplest ways. So, what would it look like for you to embrace love in a new way? And maybe it's choosing to nurture the relationships you already have. Maybe it's pouring more love into yourself, speaking to yourself with kindness rather than criticism. Maybe it's opening your heart to God's love, knowing that even in loneliness, you're not ever really truly alone. And let's talk about small steps toward healing. Healing doesn't mean forgetting, and it doesn't mean rushing past your grief. So let's establish that. What it means is that we're making room for both the sorrow and the joy to coexist with one another. It could be as simple as journaling about what you're feeling, reaching out to a trusted friend, or doing something that brings you comfort, a warm cup of tea, a walk in nature, or listening to a song that lifts your spirit. Small acts of self-care are not insignificant. They are love in action. Another step toward healing is actually finding meaning in the pain. This doesn't mean searching for a reason for your loss, but sometimes there is no reason. But grief has a way of shaping us. It deepens our compassion and it softens our hearts toward others who are also hurting. It reminds us of what truly matters in life. Perhaps your pain can lead you to love more deeply, to cherish your connections, or even to extend kindness to someone who's walking through a similar season. Most importantly, I want to encourage you, you are not alone in this. Even if you don't have all the answers, even if the road ahead feels uncertain, you are still here. And that means there is still love to give, still beauty to experience, still hope waiting for you in unexpected places. So as you move forward, give yourself grace. Some days will feel heavier than other days. Some moments will still sting, but healing is not about perfection. It's about presence. It's about showing up for yourself and allowing yourself to feel, to breathe, to take one step at a time. And if you take nothing else from this conversation, let it be this, please. Your love is not lost. It may look different right now, but it is still within you, still around you, and it is still worth embracing. As we come to the close of this episode, I want to take a moment to simply acknowledge you. You made it through Valentine's Day, even when it felt like the world was celebrating something you didn't have, something you lost, or something that no longer looks the way it once did. It did. That takes strength, even if it doesn't feel like it. Grief doesn't follow a calendar. It doesn't disappear just because a holiday passed. And I know that loneliness, the sadness, or the longing you felt may still be lingering. I want you to know that it's okay. You don't have to rush your healing. You don't have to push through the pain just because the world moves forward. Healing is not about getting over it. It's about learning to carry your love and loss in a way that allows you to still find meaning, connection, and hope. So as you take your next step, whether that means embracing the love that remains, finding small ways to care for yourself, or just simply allowing yourself to feel without judgment, I want to encourage you to be gentle with yourself. If today feels heavy, let it be heavy. If memories of love loss brings tears, let the tears come. And if you need rest, go ahead and take it. Because healing is not about pushing away your feelings. It's about making space for them. It's about honoring where you are and trusting that in time, the weight will shift even if it never fully leaves. Love is still present. I want you to remember that. Maybe not in the way that you imagine, but in the people who hold space for you, in the moments of comfort you allow yourself, and in ways you continue to show up for life, even in your grief. So as you move forward, I want to challenge you to do one thing, and that is find one act of love that you can embrace this week. Maybe it's showing love to yourself, taking a long walk, journaling your thoughts, or preparing a meal that nourishes your body and your soul. Maybe it's connecting with a friend, calling someone who understands, or reaching out to someone else who may be feeling lonely as well. Or maybe it's just deepening your spiritual connection. Maybe you're going to spend time in prayer, reading a passage of scripture that speaks to you, or simply just sitting in quiet reflection. Whatever it is, know that it matters. You matter. Your grief matters, and healing matters. If this episode spoke to your heart, I want to encourage you to share it with someone who might need to hear these words today. So often we suffer in silence, not realizing that others are walking the same road. So let's continue to hold space for one another, because no one should have to carry this grief alone. Now, if you want to stay connected, be sure to follow the Permission to Breathe podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. And if you're looking for more support in your journey through grief and healing, you can find me on social media or visit my website for additional resources. But before we go, I just want to remind you of one thing. You have permission to feel. You have permission to grieve. You have permission to love yourself just as you are. And most of all, you have permission to breathe. Take care. Be kind to yourself. and I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you so much for joining me today on the Permission to Breathe podcast. I hope today created space for you to breathe and find peace on your journey. I invite you to join me again next Monday for another episode as we continue to navigate this path together. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and to share the podcast. Until next time, take care and keep breathing unapologetically.